Hi everybody. Today we're going to go over naturalizing a denture base with Gradia gum. It is a composite material. I prefer composite materials over acrylics, which are polymethyl methacrylates. The reason is, number one, it's carcinogenic, I believe, and number two, it's much easier to control after the fact, meaning when you're staining with acrylics, you have to stain inside the flask before it's processed. You have much more control when you're putting something onto a finished denture. If you don't like with this material, if you don't like what you've done, you can just wipe it off. If you've given it a final cure, all you have to do is just grind it off right down to the acrylic and start over again. The problem with using acrylic stains, and they're not bad, but the acrylic stains you don't have as much control. If you've ever made a mistake, and people do make mistakes. There's no one on this earth can tell me they haven't made a mistake with acrylic naturalization. It's very hard to fix it. It doesn't look exactly like you intended it to. So unless you're painting the Colocure acrylic on the outside of the denture, and again, I am not a big fan of polymethyl methacrylates. You have free monomers that are floating, and there's no telling how long they're going to be leaching out of the denture. So composites are safe, they're easy, the colors hold true, and they're very, very they give a very, very high shine. So we're going to start with Gradia gum system. It's a very, very simple system. The very first thing you're going to use is composite primer. It comes in a small bottle like this, and I know it's a small bottle, but you really don't go through a whole lot once you learn how to use the system. You're not going to go through as much as you think, so you really don't need a big bottle. First thing I'm going to do is put a little bit in this art mix. The art mix is from Renford. I really like the Renford company a lot. They make quality products, and I use a lot of them. So the first thing we're going to do is wet the brush, and we're going to apply the composite primer. We don't have to put it on too thick. More is not necessarily better. And you're going to apply this at the arbor banded stage. When we finish dentures, we have a couple of different stages. We have our burr stage, we have our polishing stage. Well, in between that, you have an arbor banded stage where you arbor band everything just before you're going to pumice it. And that's the point that you want to apply the composite primer on. So it's a little porous, which is what we want, and it's roughened, which is also what we want. Because besides a chemical bond, we're going to get a mechanical bond. So you just kind of work it in a little bit. It's okay if it gets into the sulcus a little bit. We're going to use a burr, the very final thing right after we pumice it. We're going to use a burr to clear those areas out, and the composite primer will come right off of that. Now notice I am placing the composite primer over the whole denture, the pink areas. And then we're going to give it a cure. I'm going to cure this for 3 minutes, and I'm laying it on a little bit thick. That's the denture painted with the air barrier coating. We're going to place it in the Labolite. I'll give it a 3-minute cure. Okay, the next step, we're going to apply GM36. The GM stands for gum modifier. Now these are all composites, so you can mix and match to anything you want. Once you get used to the system, you can come up with a lot of different colors and a lot of different methods to naturalize a denture base, or for that matter, a composite crown. We're going to be using the GM36 as a wash. We want the denture base to look like it's a mottled look, because if you look in the mouth, if you look into an edentulous mouth, you'll see that the tissue is not really just one pink color. There's translucency to it. There's a mottled look to different colors from when the bone is close to the tissue, when it's further away from the tissue, depending on the blood flow and the papilla attachments. So what we're going to do is use it in kind of a washed look, and I don't want it all to be one uniform color like a dark red such as the GM36, because we have chosen a specific denture base shade too. So we're kind of enhancing and giving it a mottled look, different color, blanching effects and so forth. So we're going to do one quadrant at a time now, not the whole denture, one quadrant at a time, and then we'll do the palette. And then the next step after that is the GM35, which is a vanilla color. That is gives it the blanching effect around the necks of the teeth, and we'll do 1 to 2 teeth at a time because you're actually building up root structure and highlighting root structure, so we want to be pretty accurate at that. And it's very simple to do, and it's also fun. Right now I'm taking the denture out. We've given it a 3-minute cure. And you can see that the composite primer is on. Now, the composite primer is exactly that. It's not a composite. You know, when composites cure without air barrier coating, it has a slick surface. You can see the composite primer has a shiny surface to it, but it's a composite primer. It's not a composite. When composites cure without air barrier coating, they're tacky. And that's what we're going to be looking for if you're going to be adding pastes to it. The tackiness will aid you in the placement of the paste, which we will be using today a little bit. It will bond to this material because it's a composite primer, it's a bonder, but it will kind of roll off of it sometimes. It's not tacky because it has a slick surface. So before you put any paste, you just want to make sure that you cover it up with some type of one of the flowables, such as the GM36 that we're about to do. And how I apply the GM36 is I'll put some of the GM36 in the art mix. I'm going to take a little bit of composite primer. I'm going to add 3 drops to this because what I want to do is mix it. What I did is I added some composite primer to the GM36 because I don't want it as an intense color. I want it to be washed. So what we're doing is we mix it. You can see it's got a thick kind of mix, but as you start to mix it, you'll see it all of a sudden it'll just kind of slump. You can see how that just kind of runs off like that. That's what we're looking for. Now we're going to use our brush. I'm going to dip our brush in just a little bit of water. These are Ceramicus brushes from Renford. And as far as applying composites, these are the best brushes I have found so far. It's a synthetic brush, so it holds water more readily. And the nice thing about that is if you wet it with water, then you can go ahead and put your composite primer on there or pick up any of your composites. It will come off, for the most part, it will come off the brush completely. It won't gum up your brush. Also, another thing is if you want to apply, which what we're going to do right now, a wider section, when the brush is wet, you can flatten it and it will stay flat. So, you know, it's a great brush. They're not that expensive, and if you take care of them, just clean them when you're done and store them back in the containers they come with. They will last you a long time. So we pick up a little bit after we've placed it, or we've mixed it, and all we're going to do is just wipe it on, kind of a mottled look. Now you can see the denture base showing through on some of the pieces. On some of the places. We can go up in between the embrasures, and you might want to do it a little thick down, lay a line down here like this. I'm going to give, I kind of like that. If you can see that real quick. Okay. I like that, so I'm going to give that a quick freeze. Just a 10-second freeze, that's all we need. And once it's hard, we don't have to worry about it flowing. And I'm going to continue around now. I usually do about a quadrant. I just happen to really like what I did, so I wanted to make sure I froze it. 10 seconds is all it really needs. And again, if you make a mistake with this, you know, it's not to worry, because all we have to do is either wipe it off if at this stage, or you can grind it off if you've taken all the way to the curing stage. You know, and it'll go right, you just take it right down to the acrylic base again. You can start all over. And it's much harder to do that if you're using acrylic stains. Also, you know, if you are using an acrylic stain in this fashion, and they do make a few products like that, and they're not bad. The problem is they have monomer in them, and you're going to be smelling monomer. So when you're using a methyl methacrylate, you know, you have to be in a well-ventilated area. Otherwise, you are going to smell the monomer, and you'll get a headache, or maybe get stoned. And then when you come down, you're going to come down real hard. Believe me, I know. I've been there and done it. Okay, so I have done the whole buckle surface. And I want to compare the two. I'm not looking for anything that is completely and totally bilateral. You know, it can be different. I might add a little bit more over here. And right around the borders, or maybe I'll just leave that. Okay, so now we're going to do the palette. And the same thing with the palette. All I'm going to do is just kind of wash it, just like this. Now, what I'm going to do with the palette is just keep the darker up here. I think I need to mix a little bit more. What I'm going to do with the palette is outline the rugai that I placed in there, that I carved the rugai in the wax. So I'm going to highlight the rugai once I'm done with the GM36, the dark red. I'm going to highlight that with GM35, so it's going to look just like papilla in the mouth. Now there's a good shot of the model look. You can see the denture base through there, the dark red. So I kind of like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a quick freeze. I'm going to add a little bit more up here because I want to make sure the vanilla color is highlighted. So I'm going to give that a cure real quick. You know, if a denture patient feels confident that no one knows they're wearing a denture and it feels natural, they have the confidence to smile really big. And that's what our whole job is about, is making people smile and making them function. So that's the GM36. And I might add a little bit more 36 over here onto the side because a little bit of the material is going to pumice away. And that's okay because usually it pumices away at the high points. So what's left is the natural looking tissue. Okay. So I'm going to take a little bit of the GM24. I'm going to squish out, this is the paste, I'm going to squish out a little bit. I'm going to place it right here on top of the art mix tray. And Renford also makes some really nice composite instruments, and you can see that it's very flexible, yet it's stiff enough to place composite where we want. So I'm going to take just a little bit of composite. I'm going to place it right where my cusp is. Now you can see I just placed it there and it's stuck right to it. If we just stick it right on top of the composite primer before we wash it with some type of a gum modifier, it'd probably slide off. Although if you did get it to stick, it will stick. It won't go anywhere. But it's just much easier because now I can pack this anywhere I want. And I'm using some dark colors. Some people might not like the dark colors, but I like a lot of contrast. You know, as long as I'm going out of my way to naturalize the denture base, I want to make sure people can see it. I want to make sure that the patient can see it. So I'm putting just a little bit right here to highlight the root structure a little bit. Make it just a little bit bigger, taper it down to the border. Then I'm going to use my brush again. And also the composite primer can be used to dilute materials. It can be used to smooth, to bond materials. So what I'm going to do is freeze that. Now that was the that was the G, which is gum, stands for paste, gum 24. They also have a gum 22, which is a little less pink, not as intense. But the gum shades, the pinks, are a little more dense color. They're more opaque. So on top of this, I'm going to highlight this with the GM35, so it looks like you'll see dark pink behind it, which is the G24, but you'll see the light color of the GM35. So this actually does become intrinsic. And one of the things, somebody made me laugh some time ago, they told me that the acrylic stains are intrinsic, when you put them in the flask. But, what they didn't realize is when you put it in the flask, just because it's in a flask doesn't mean it's intrinsic. You're putting the acrylic stains on the buccal surface of the flask and packing behind it. So it's still on the buccal surface. It's just a matter of how you layer your acrylic. And again, if you make a mistake, it's very hard to fix. That's why I really like composites. And plus, they're odorless, colorless. I don't know if they're tasteless. I never put it in my mouth. But okay, now I'm going to add a little bit of composite. The G again, 24 to the other side. A little bit of an angle back because the teeth are not straight up and down in our mouth. Kind of taper to a point down here. See if I like that. That looks good. I think I'll take my brush, I'll wet it, and I'll smooth it off a little bit. Now you can also use a stiffer brush to do this, but at this point, right now I don't have one here, so I'm just kind of teasing it a little bit to get it to smooth, and you can see how that works very well. So far the applications we have now were the composite primer, GM36, which is the dark red, and I added a little bit of the G24 gum paste over the cuspids to give it a little bit more rich structure. And the next thing we're going to do is use the GM35. That's the vanilla color, and that is going to mimic the blanched tissue around the collars of the teeth, the necks of the teeth, rich structure, and papilla. And that's also very, very simple to use. Although with the GM35 we're actually going to build up root structure, so we are not going to dilute the GM35. To wet my brush, a little bit of water, put some composite primer on there, and I'm going to start by picking up a little bit of the GM35, and you'll get used to using it. It's kind of stringy. Now, one of the things about anatomy in the mouth, the first molar has 2 roots to the buccal surface, and I've always wondered why people just put one lump like that. Why don't we just go ahead and put the 2 roots to the buccal surface, like this. And we'll make that a little bit neater as we go along. But put 2 roots to the surface like this. And when we polish it, it actually looks like the roots of a first molar now. Also, I'm set up here in a specific way. The step light is on my left-hand side. I'm right-handed, so I hold the appliance in my left hand. I want to be able to make sure I can just hit the step light real quick, cure it, and bring it back to my right hand and do more application. Also, I keep my composite on my right-hand side away from the light on the left. That way it doesn't cure as I'm using it. Okay, so we're putting the lighter color around the second bicuspid now, where we're just elongating it, a little bit of root structure to it, making it a little bit thicker up here, drawing down the root structure just like this. And here we go with the first bicuspid, same thing. Now what we can do is make a longer root structure if we wanted to come. We can come all the way down. Just kind of tease the material, come all the way down like that. Some of this will polish away. And again, what's left is going to be exactly what we're looking for. Here's the lateral. We're not going to make the root structure of the lateral as long as the cuspid, or even the central for that fact. If you get any material in the sulcus, you can just take it right out with the brush. Do is highlight each side of the pillow with just a little more GM36. And again, I'm going to use material to make two roots to the buccal surface. Kind of compared it to what I had on the other side. I want it to be similar. It doesn't have to be exact, but I kind of like it to be similar to what I had on the other side. To give it an optical illusion, I'm going to put a little bit more on each one of these root structures here, like this. And put a little bit of dark red right in between there, so it highlights the two buccal surface roots, just like that. So now they show up a little bit more. Buccal surface. What I'm going to do is highlight the root eye. Okay, it's very simple to do. We're just going to draw a line, and we're going to highlight the root eye that we placed or carved in our wax up. Now I have to work kind of fast with this, otherwise it will slump. Now it does come off of the denture base a little bit, so it's a bump, which is what root eye is. But when you pumice it and polish it, it's going to flatten out to be exactly what we're looking for. It's just the way it works out. And I'm just freezing each line. It doesn't take long. Trying to make them look as natural as we can. Just to kind of fill that in. I think we're going to leave the root eye just like this now. When we cure this for a final cure and then pumice and polish it, it's going to smooth it down. It's going to blend it right in. So I'm pretty happy with the way this denture looks right now. Now the last thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to use a little bit of intensive color, number 8 blue. That's IC blue. And with a little bit of composite primer, I'm going to dilute the blue with a little bit of composite primer, say 3 drops. We'll mix this up. And I'm going to put this right around the border. What this is going to do is mimic the stretched part of the gum, which is engorged with blood. I'm going to do this all the way around this first quadrant, and then I'm going to wipe it off with a bigger brush, because I just want a little bit of highlight. Kind of smashing it to mix it. Most of that will pumice off. Which is what I want. Pay attention, see how thick I am. It looks kind of weird, doesn't it? But remember, I want this to come off. And just leave just a hint. Uh-oh. Now notice I haven't cured this yet, because I want to make sure I'm completely happy with how much I have taken off. I don't want that blue color on there, I just want a translucency. Let me give this a quick freeze. I think I'm pretty much done naturalizing this. I call it naturalize because, you know, we're trying to mimic nature. Characterize is an old word. I believe it's a cheap word. So with that said, we're going to cover this denture with air barrier coating right now. And you need air barrier coating for one big reason. If we do not use air barrier coating when we give the final cure to a composite, and usually it's any composite, not just GC's material, but any composite, if you cure without air barrier coating, what happens is the oxygen gets to the composite, and when it cures, it will not be a complete cure. It will be porous. It will absorb odor. It will absorb stains like nobody's business. So we need to cover the denture completely with an air barrier coating. And the air barrier coating is very reasonably priced. And you have to do it. It's just part of the procedure. If you don't, you're going to end up with an awful lot of problems. So what I'm going to do with the air barrier coating is I'm going to use a clean brush, which I think this is a clean brush. I'm going to apply the air barrier coating onto the denture just like this, probably onto one quadrant like this. I'm just going to tease it over the whole denture. I know it looks like a mess, but it does wash right off. It does not cure onto the denture. You know, if you run out of air barrier coating, there are things you can do. You can use Vaseline. You can probably use oil, although I don't recommend any of those. You know, air barrier coating is manufactured to work with the product, so that's just in case you run out, you have options. Step is just the 3-minute cure. That's all it takes for a final cure. I'm going to put this in the Labolite, which is right up here. I'm going to close the door, and we're going to cure it for 3 minutes, which is what the directions say. And we'll be back in about 3 minutes. We'll wash off the air barrier coating. We'll take a look at it and see if there are any changes we want. Now, at this point, if we want to add anything, we have to sandblast the area again because it is final cured. Once it's final cured, we have to sandblast or braid the area or roughen it up with a burr, reapply composite primer, and then re-cure it. But it looks like we're going to be okay with this, so we'll wash it off, check it out, and the next step is to pumice and polish it. I wanted to tell you about something that we're going to do the final stage. Instead of high shine, we're going to put a glaze on it. And yes, I said the word glaze. For the last 3 years, I've been telling people and talking all over the country, all over the world about applying glaze to partials and to dentures. I've tried them, I've been there, I've done that, and I despise glazes. The reason is 6 months later, when these patients come back, these glazes attract tar, nicotine, any kind of stain, coffee, tea, and they come back and these patients, their dentures are covered with this, and it sticks to the glaze. So I swore I would never try another glaze, although on the other side of the coin, I'm always looking for new products. So I found a glaze, and it's actually manufactured by GC, and we'll talk about it as I'm using it. But I tried this glaze. I always try new products. I tried this glaze, and I couldn't believe it. It actually worked. It did what it said, and it only has a 3-minute cure. The other glazes I've tried were liquid acrylics. When you're using it, if you don't use it fast enough, all of a sudden it becomes stringy, and it has bubbles in it, and it has monomer in it. So again, you're going to be leaching monomer out of that denture into the patient's mouth. I'm not so sure how safe that is. There is another glaze that's an aerosol that is an actual acrylic, and the aerosol has monomer in it, and you have to use it under a fume cupboard. And again, I don't like monomer. So some of the other light cured glazes, they take 10 minutes to cure them, and it's a little too long because it takes so long to use it or to cure it, and they still absorb odors. What we're looking for is something that cures fast, that doesn't need an air barrier coating because it's not a complete composite. So we're looking for something that's ideal, and I think I have found it. I've had some cases in the mouth now for over 6 months. The patients have come back, and there has not been no tar, no nicotine, no coffee, no tea stains. So I'm hopeful that another 6 months are going to roll around. When they come back, we won't have any problems. So I think I found something finally that works. So you know what? In 6 months, I'll come back and I'll give it another yay or nay, and I have a feeling it's going to be a real good yay. So anyway, let's take a break, and we're going to come back, look at the denture when it's finished, and then we'll pumice, and we will apply the glaze, and then I'm going to go